A new Bloomberg government study puts a striking number on the new rules and regulations in the Dodd-Frank financial overhaul law approved this summer. Its goal, of course, is to head off another massive financial crisis. To do that, the law calls for 122 new councils, advisory committees, other panels, and mandatory consultations. It also gives business advocacy groups and industry plenty of ways to exert influence on regulators as they implement the law. Joining us now from Washington is Bloomberg Government policy analyst Cady North to talk about 122 and other various numbers associated with all of this. Talk to us about some examples of the new entities created in the Dodd-Frank law that fall under that sort of 122 number of the different types of panels.
Sure, Julie. Thank you. Well, a couple of examples are things that people have heard about quite a bit. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Financial Stability Oversight Council, both are very large regulatory entities that are going to have significant new bureaucratic layers and structure within them. We also have several other new types of entities. One other example is 31 offices of minority and women inclusion that are required to be created in all of the financial regulators. These offices are required to create new staff. They need office space as well as computers and other supplies that will have to be funded and purchased as the months move forward.
And so basically most of these are sort of sub-panels and offices within offices that are required. What about the consultations you talked about? What does that entail, really?
Well, we counted about 44 mandatory consultations, and these were included in our analysis for several reasons. One is that these are areas where federal agencies that weren't previously coordinating on several different areas of regulation now have to coordinate, and they're mandated by law to do that. They're mandated in some cases to have regular meetings, jointly prescribe and approve rules, as well as meet with constituencies. And the reason why we thought these were important is because it provides yet another way for consumer groups, industry groups, and businesses to help influence some of the regulatory process as the law is implemented.
So in other words, a positive that there are so many avenues with which the public and different groups can reach these agencies, or is that more of a negative that it creates, too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak?
Well, there's certainly a number of layers to this, and some of the things that we've looked at is, on the one hand, it's a lot of areas and ways for outside entities to help it shape the law and implement the law in a way that benefits a lot of parties. But on the negative side, there are these layers of federal government that will be created along with the law that will potentially create funding constraints within the federal government.
Well, speaking of funding constraints, I mean, federal funding is frozen until March. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of different things here. Just quickly, how is all this going to be funded?
Well, in our analysis, many of the entities had no funding identified along with them. So as you mentioned, funding is frozen currently. It sort of remains to be seen as to how a lot of these entities will be funded. In fact, the SEC recently made an announcement that said they were delaying the implementation and creation of 6 various offices that they're required to create within the law.
All right, Cady North, thank you so much for joining us, talking to us about your analysis. Bloomberg Government policy analyst Cady North joining us from Washington. The opinions expressed are her own, not necessarily those of Bloomberg Television.